Hello, you're listening to Over the Oxer podcast with Tracy Cole for all things to do with the mind for equestrians. Welcome to today's episode. And today's episode is all about something called anchoring, which you'll recognize as soon as I start talking about it if you don't know already. It's about how your brain links emotions and memories to feelings and how you can recall those things pretty easily. But more importantly, how you can control all of this. So have you ever noticed how one small thing can change your entire state in seconds? So you're having the perfect day, you've had some great things happen, you've been smiling, you've had good conversations, maybe you've had a good ride, and one thing just turns everything around. It could be you get a certain text from a certain person. It could be the sound of something, like a tractor coming down the lane, with all the whirligigs on, one of the combine harvester types. It could be the sound of a competition bell. It could even be just pulling your boots on before you get to ride. And that shift is an anchor. So to define anchors very simply, an anchor is when your brain links a certain stimulus to an emotion. Okay, so the stimulus comes from your five senses. So it could be something that you see or smell or touch or hear or taste. I couldn't remember the fifth one then. So yeah, something that your five senses gives you, it brings about an emotion. It's not random. It's an automatic processing in your brain. And this is the important bit. We actually move from anchor to anchor to anchor throughout the day. That's what we're keyed for. Now, let's have a little think about everyday anchors, because you might think, oh gosh, how am I going from stimulus to stimulus to stimulus? But you are, and you're doing it very automatically and often very unconsciously. So, for instance, when your alarm tone goes on your phone, then you have a certain response. Now, if you're lucky, that'll be, oh great, it's a new day. But if you're more like me, it's, oh my God, I've got to get up. You might see a letter from the bank or from, the tax people or something, and it's on the outside of the envelope and your heart sinks. You might smell, I don't know, coffee percolating or coffee. I'm not a coffee drinker, so I don't know what coffee, what coffee does, coffee being ground or something like that. And that makes you feel a certain level of comfort. You might see a red stoplight, traffic light, and hopefully, and you abide by it, to just stop. You don't need to think, oh, what colour is it? Oh, what do I do if it's red? Oh, I need to stop. Right, what do? I put my foot on the brake. You do it automatically. You don't think about it. And we have those anchors throughout the day. You're anchored to how to drive your car. You're anchored to how to get on your horse. Doesn't it feel really strange when you get on your horse on the right side of the horse instead of the left side of the horse? And that's to do with anchoring, because we're very comfortable. There might be some physiological reason as well that, it's easier because we're so conditioned to getting on the same side. But, a lot of these things are very natural anchors. We don't even think about them. They just bring on a certain mood or a certain emotion. What's it feel like when you've done all your jobs for the day? Everything, all the chores are done, and you sit down. So it's cued and it's automatic. And your nervous system is constantly pairing a stimulus with an emotion, even if the emotion's neutral, even if the emotion is, a bit of boredom. There's that constant stimulus and emotion. Now, the emotion doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be positive, because sometimes we're anchored negatively. And some of those negative anchors are things that make us feel bad before we've even thought about it. And this is why mindset, and in particular NLP, is so useful, because it can stop the way that automatic wiring goes. So how did we ever set up anchors in the first place? Well, they weren't accidental. The way that we do it naturally is through repetition. And you think about when you go to a new job, or you move yard, or you move house, and things are in different places, and you have to think it through. Or, where did I put the knives and forks? Where did I put my saddle? Why did I put all my feed stuff there when it's so hard to get to? And that's because you're not fully anchored yet. You're having to think about doing things. When you are anchored, it's nice and automatic. And we anchor through repetition or strong emotion or both. So you could get anchored very quickly with very, very little repetition by having a very strong emotion. So if, let's say, something fabulous happens at a certain venue, you win, you get the red rosette, you're first in the class, this has never happened, it's absolutely wonderful. You may develop an anchor to that venue. You can do it negatively, of course, as well. Or you repeatedly do something, and eventually your mind says, right, this is a pattern. I don't need to think too much about it. I know how it goes. So let's bring it into the equestrian world. Think about these types of anchors. So when you walk into a warm-up arena, what emotion does that give you? When you hear a bell to start your round, or a car horn in some cases, how does that make you feel? When your trainer or instructor or coach uses a certain word or a certain tone of voice, how does that feel? How does the first stride of canter feel? How does it feel when you know your horse is backing off a fence? So, for some riders, some of these things will be hugely positive, and some will be hugely negative, and some will be in the middle. For example, seeing the mounting block that you use repeatedly, some people will think, this is the start. This is brilliant. I love this. I love riding. Or they may feel determination, because I'm determined to get that particular movement or that particular jump just right. With the same action, another person will see the mounting block and feel tension, and feel it in their body and feel it in their mind. So it could be the same mounting block, because it could be at the same place, but the two riders feel very different. And it could be, that person has anchored tension because maybe their horse has looked a certain way in the past. Maybe the horse hasn't stood still. Maybe riding has not been too pleasant in the past. But our brain will pair that with a certain action. And so it's because our nervous system is so efficient that we get these anchors going. So if you have a negative anchor, whether it's putting a bridle on, holding your saddle and walking across the yard, seeing your lorry, seeing your horse, seeing the arena, seeing a certain jump, whatever your negative anchor is, try to think now that it's not your fault. It's because your brain is so efficient at making associations that this has been set up. And remember that anchors form through repetition, emotional intensity, and then pairing the emotion with the stimulus. So because we know the mechanism of anchoring, then we don't need to wait for our brain to do it naturally. We don't need to try and force it by going to the mountain block and thinking, I am definitely going to feel confident. I'm really, really going to feel confident. And you don't feel confident at all. Your brain knows that you're not confident. You're just kind of masking or trying to pretend in some way. We have much, much more subtle ways of being able to anchor ourselves into a state that we really want. And we can anchor it with a particular thing that we see, like a mountain block, like your saddle, something that we hear, piece of music, for instance, something that we taste. You could put some chewing gum in. I don't really recommend chewing gum while you're riding, but or just maybe a sweet while you're tacking up. Something that you smell. Some people calm their nerves using lavender and other essential oils. Is that because they're anchored? Or is that because the oil is doing something to their nervous system? So we can, in NLP, create the anchor we want to have. So that's really empowering. NLP didn't invent anchors by any means. It reverse engineered what the brain already does, found out what the brain does, and then decided, right, it's pairing this stimulus with a particular state. We can now choose the stimulus that we want. We can install an anchor deliberately. So, for example, when you think of a moment when you felt very calm, it might be nothing to do with riding because we want the emotion. So it could be a time when you were on holiday. You were sitting on a beach, or maybe you were sitting relaxing in the garden. And you think of that. That helps your mind to remember what it feels like, the emotion that you want to have. And we compare that with the stimulus. And it is, in psychology, it's called conditioning. In NLP, it's called anchoring. But it's a fantastically powerful way of changing how we think about certain items or certain places or even certain people. If somebody really makes you feel bad the instant you see them, you can anchor against that as well. So we don't remove a negative anchor by force. They're overridden by more powerful positive ones. So we're not fighting against an old pattern and forcing ourselves, but we are installing a more powerful, positive one. And we install it repeatedly, and it probably takes, maybe 10 minutes if you're doing it right from scratch. Maybe 12 minutes. We're not talking a long series of techniques here. And that's why, it works, because we do it using repetition. So that you're already anchored in some way positively. You think about something that you just see it, smell it, taste it, touch it, hear it, and you instantly feel good. For me, that's looking out sometimes on a scene like looking over the moors. I live near the moorlands in Staffordshire. Well, I live in the Staffordshire moorlands, but if I go up to the hills and I just look across, and it's kind of bleak up there, It's moorland, it's grass, but there's not a lot there, and I just love that. It's the emptiness and the space, and it just makes me feel a sense of freedom, a sense that I can breathe. So if you think about how you're already anchored to something really positive, and then consider any negative anchors, the question is, are you choosing what anchors you? Are you anchoring to a yard pressure? Are you anchoring to a competition in terms of going into survival mode? Or could you re-anchor a bell to start your competition to focus? The mountain block means joy or freedom or determination or motivation. So these small cues can lead to very powerful shifts. And if you'd really like to go deeper into anchoring, I've got this lovely little workshop coming up. It's available to everybody. So if you're a coach listening to this, that might be something that you would like to help riders with. It's a morning if you're going to join me live on Zoom. It's mental anchoring for riding performance. I'm going to put the link into the description box. It's very practical. Hopefully it's really relatable. It's very easy to do. So if you can't join me on the live, maybe you would like to have the recording. And the recording, as I say, I'm going to take you through it step by step, and you can practice on yourself. If you're a coach, you can practice on yourself and then go and practice with your clients. So no jargon, just nice and easy anchoring, leading to a different way of experiencing those things that usually stimulate us and trigger us in a negative way. So I hope that's provided some food for thought, and I will see you again next time. Take care. See you again really soon. PM UK time. It's £45 per person, and recordings will be available to everyone who signs up. If you want to go to my website, you'll find it under courses, and my website is www.tracycolenlp.com. Thanks ever so much. Take care. See you soon.